back, everyone. We got a lot to talk about in Lakerland. We got a whole lot of reports about Wendell Carter Jr. potentially being a trade target for them now. We got the Gary Trent signing free agency front. Will he sign with them eventually? Will they clear up a spot for him? And then we got Summer League to talk about as well. Las Vegas Summer League officially began earlier today. We got the debut of Bronny, got the debut of Dalton Knecht, everyone on the team, and it was pretty underwhelming if I'm going to be honest. I think we'll begin by talking about that. I'll flip over to the stat page here. That's purely from shooting. Pretty much nobody but Dalton Knecht shot well, and everyone played pretty poor. I won't say everybody played poor defense. Bronny played okay defense, but again, talking about offense or shooting in general, man, they can't find it other than Dalton Knecht, who shot 9 for 18 from the field tonight, 5 for 11 from 3. Man, it was pretty poor showing. And, I mean, they just had nothing going. Bronny, he was definitely aggressive tonight, and I like that, but, man, could not find the shot at all. 0 for 8 from 3, 3 for 14 from the field. Again, like the aggressiveness from him and really the entire team, but man, they couldn't find it. I like the additions. If you watch not my latest video, but 2 videos back now, they picked up Moses Brown and Trent Forrest for their Summer League team to add a little bit of veteran leadership to the team. I think they definitely needed it. If you watched any of their 3 games at the California Classic, it wasn't looking too well. But I thought Moses Brown played pretty well. Trent Forrest didn't really put up many shots, played okay defense, but again, I know everyone's interested about the debut of Bronny and Dalton Knecht, Maxwell Lewis, if you're high on him too, and for Bronny, again, disappointing. If I had to sum it up in a few words, he looked many years away from being an NBA player on offense, but pretty NBA ready on defense, and you really can't have one without the other as a small guard or even a small wing. You got to be a two-way player if you hope to play. So maybe he'll, get a little more comfortable, find his shot throughout, maybe find lanes. I like the way he cut back door. He did okay at doing that. I think Tommy Kuhse found him a couple times. Castleton had an okay find with him on a backdoor cut, but he looked many years away from being an NBA player on offense, if I'm telling, from what I saw anyway. But Dalton Knecht, he definitely played a lot better. And, like I've been talking about him, I don't think he really has done anything wrong. He's gotten to his spots. He's taken shots that he has taken all throughout college and shots that are good for him. He just hadn't been making them up until really game 4, the 4th game. And I kind of talked about it too. Maybe a lot of the guys in their team will feel the crowd. You know how Laker fans love to come out and support in Las Vegas. So maybe that helped him shoot a little bit better, get into a feel. But yeah, I like the way he shot. He got to his spots on the floor really well. Again, 5 for 11 from 3. That looked good. Really good playmaking too. If you kept up with what I was talking about on Twitter throughout the game, I like the way Dalton Knecht was reading the floor, not only for himself, but finding teammates, definitely in the open court as well. He even had a couple that didn't get finished by Maxwell Lewis. He could add well more than 4 assists on the night and only 1 turnover. And even in the second half, they kind of turned to him as their primary ball handler and kind of point guard too, with Tommy Kuhse not really being a true point guard, and then Trent Forrest having only just been picked up. He really can't feel that role from them either. And then again, they are playing without Jalen Hood-Schifino yet, who I really don't think is going to make it back for Summer League. I haven't really heard much about it, but it doesn't seem like he'll be coming back. He had that back issue, and he's probably looking at making it back for training camp at this point. But in kind of how I feel about that, that'll kind of be a missed opportunity for his development, in my opinion. But hopefully guys like Dalton Knecht can take advantage of that from a primary ball handler standpoint and get more of a feel going into training camp. He definitely will be fighting for minutes with the way their roster currently stands right now. And that's another thing I want to talk about too. Given how, we're waiting for them to make a move, I'll get off this, pull up my little roster sheet here. We'll get into the Wendell Carter stuff here in a minute. Actually, I don't want to pull up that one. we'll pull up the training camp roster. With where things are at right now, if let's say they wouldn't make any more moves and this is how their team is going to look heading into training camp, there's going to be a lot of open competition in that shooting guard, small forward spot between Christie, Cam Reddish, Dalton Knecht, mainly those three kind of behind Reeves and Hachimura, LeBron, Vanderbilt, however you want to put them there. Hachimura is not really a small forward. LeBron is a power forward at this point. Vanderbilt, kind of small forward, power forward, depending on the way you look at it. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of viability open there for playing time. And the way Dalton Knecht, I don't really like to read into Summer League that much, but the way he performs throughout it, it might have a small effect on how JJ Redick views him in the rotation heading into training camp. I think more than anything, training camp and preseason will affect it more, but he could definitely help himself get a little early jump over maybe a guy like Cam Reddish if they would hang on to him and not salary dump him. So it could be a great opportunity for Knecht to kind of boost his spot within the rotation and kind of gain favor with JJ Redick a little bit. You already know how Redick loves the three-point shooters, movement shooter kind of archetype, and I'm sure he envisions a lot of that in Knecht. So yeah, that could be a good opportunity for him. Then on the Wendell Carter Jr. and Gary Trent trade front, if you watched my latest video when I was talking about if they would trade a D'Angelo Russell for a Wendell Carter Jr., how that could open up money on their payroll. And from there, how we've been talking about, can they sign Gary Trent Jr.? Can they not? Do they have enough room to use their taxpayer mid-level exception to even offer him? And right now they don't. But if they would trade a D'Angelo Russell or even a Rui Hachimura for Wendell Carter Jr., and we'll pull up the old trade machine here. Now hopefully I'll be able to show it to you then. But that would save them about, depending if you'd be trading D'Lo or Hachimura, you'd save about $5.5 to about $7 million off their payroll. And they only need to open up about 5.5 to use their taxpayer mid-level right now. Because right now they're only $45K under the second apron. So that's not nearly enough room to be able to offer a $5.2 million contract to a Gary Trent Jr. or even if it would be a different player too. But yeah, they need to get further under that, and pretty sure you guys can see it on the screen right now. Let me check. Yep, you should be able to. Like I said, if they would trade a D'Lo for a Wendell Carter, you can debate what it might take from a draft pick standpoint, or other players have to be included, but purely from a financial one, they would offer D'Lo for him. They would open up about $7 million on their payroll, and then they would be able to use their $5.2 million mid-level exception. And if no other team would go out and offer a contract to Gary Trent, hey, he might be able to take that. He might be willing to take that too. And then, like I referred to before about their roster and that competition at that 2-3 spot, even though Dalton Knecht might be gaining a spot for himself, or maybe he could throughout training camp, there's definitely room there for a Gary Trent Jr. Like, he could take a look at their team, especially if they would salary dump Cam Reddish, and look at it and say, hey, I have a viable pathway to playing time on this team. I might be taking a pay cut, but for a 1-year prove it kind of deal, I can definitely rebuild my value here. I see a good fit for myself here. They don't have a great spot up shooter. I would be the best one on the team. And you got LeBron and Anthony Davis finding you in the corner on the wing. I think he got a good spot for himself in the team. A good fit, obviously, too, in my opinion. But yeah, again, it kind of will depend on, can they open up enough room on their payroll? And I think the best way to do that, while getting a guy like Wendell Carter, would be trading D'Angelo Russell. Again, you could trade a Rui Hachimura for him instead, but you're not opening up quite as much money on your payroll. You're only opening up $5 million flat. So what you'd have to do in addition to that is salary dump a Cam Reddish and or Christian Wood, and then wait to fill that 15th spot for a little bit longer to be able for minimum contracts to go down as the year goes on. So it'd be a little more complicated, but the main goal here is that you want to open up money on the payroll to get further under that second apron. And that's really what I've been putting an emphasis on here lately, and kind of just wanted to give that you a better viewpoint of what I'm talking about. But I'll answer a few questions in the chat here. What are we talking about? How do we feel about Castleton now? Game 4, Castleton, Las Vegas Summer League debut didn't really do anything for me for either a bad or a good standpoint. He was kind of mediocre. I mean, he looked okay on offense, yet rebounded fairly well yet. Defense, like I've kind of been talking about, neither great nor terrible. I think at the actual NBA level, he'll probably be a bit too slow to kind of do anything but playing a drop coverage. He won't be able to switch on defense, and we've even been kind of watching that throughout Summer League too. He's been pretty heavily reliant on drop coverage and kind of standing around the rim, and I think that's probably how it will be. What else are we talking about? Are we keeping D'Lo? I mean, like I talked about in the trade example here, if you want to get a Wendell Carter Jr., who the Orlando Magic, by the way, did have interest in signing him if D'Lo opted out of his contract rather than in, who knows for sure if they would have pursued him over they could have signed him and KCP, but then they would not have been able to bring back Gary Harris or bring back a Mo Wagner or a Goga Batadze. So, who knows if they actually would have gave him a contract offer or not. It sounded like they may have. Maybe it wouldn't have been the contract he wanted, but they definitely have interest in him, and it's for a good reason too. They don't have a true developed point guard on their team. I'd say the only true point guard on their team, or maybe could become one, is Anthony Black, who right now is only 20 years old. So, I mean, he played okay last season. If anything, he's like a good perimeter defender right now with flashes on offense, being good playmaker at times, okay three-point shooter. But if they're trying to win now, they probably want a true point guard, a more veteran point guard, and that's what D'Angelo Russell could do for them. So, again, are we keeping D'Lo? I think it would probably be 50-50 at this point. I would not be shocked at all if they entered the year with him and, maybe evaluated his fit within JJ Redick's new offense and how that would all work out, and then maybe reevaluate it at the trade deadline, maybe moving him, but I'd say 50-50 right now. What else are we talking about? The Wendell Carter Jr. trade and getting Gary Trent Jr. would be awesome, but I really don't like the thought of losing Rui over D'Lo. Yeah, that's kind of the back and forth here. You could trade either one for him. I mean, you could even trade a Gabe Vincent with minimum contracts if you don't feel like they can get Gary Trent Jr., or if they don't want to offer their taxpayer mid-level to a player at all, then yeah, they could offer a Gabe Vincent or even Jared Vanderbilt for a Wendell Carter. I wouldn't do that, but yeah, you could offer a Gabe Vincent in a minimum contract and make it work that way too. I prefer, again, to do the D'Lo or Hachimura route to be able to open up enough money on their payroll, enough money under the second apron to be able to offer that mini mid-level exception, because I'm optimistic in their ability to pull a Gary Trent Jr. or maybe a different free agent that has not gotten a contract yet. If they would trade D'Lo for Wendell Carter and then they would salary dump a Cam Reddish or Christian Wood, whatever, and they wanted to replace D'Lo or maybe Gary Trent signed with a different team, they could offer that $5.2 million contract to a Tyus Jones instead, who is a true point guard. They could go that route too. Plenty of options, so I don't know. I feel like they will trade one of D'Lo or Hachimura. It might not seem like it right now with how patient they've been, but I think they'll trade one of them, even if it would take until the trade deadline. I don't think they go the entire year with both them on their team. Should we be worried about OKC now? I would be scared to face them in the playoffs. I mean, I don't know if you're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder being put in their in-season tournament pool, if you're referring to that with the first part of your question, but yeah, if you didn't see actually the NBA in-season tournament pools got released, and let's see if I can find them here actually. I know the Lakers are with Oklahoma City, Phoenix. Yeah, here we go. We'll pull it up here. Yeah, okay, they're in West Group B. So you got Oklahoma City, Phoenix, the Lakers, Utah, and then San Antonio. I'd call that one of the tougher pools for the West. Not the toughest. I would definitely call Group C the toughest, with you got Denver, Dallas, New Orleans, Golden State, and Memphis. And if they're all healthy, that's a tough pool. Luckily, that's not your playoff bracket. It's only your in-season tournament bracket. But yeah, no, I'd definitely be worried about Oklahoma City, whether you're talking about the pool for the in-season tournament or if you're talking about, the entire regular season going into the postseason. Yeah, they're definitely a threat with one more year under their belt, given that they already pushed Dallas to a game 6 and even look to kind of be in the lead at 1.2 over them. Yeah, they're definitely a big threat. I'd put them right up there with Dallas and Minnesota and Denver again, kind of that top 4. What else are we talking about? Wendell looks great. I agree. I like everything about Wendell Carter Jr. other than that he is a bit injury prone. If you've been keeping up with the videos, I've been talking about that as the one major con about trading for him or purely having him on your team in general. I mean, if you take a look at the games played through his career, you got 62, 57, 55, 54, 44, 43. Never hit the 70 game mark. I mean, even if you're talking about qualifying for awards, the new 65 game limit, he wouldn't even do that. So definitely a bit of a risk when you got a LeBron and Anthony Davis on your team too. You want to pair a Wendell Carter with them, that's something you want to think about. Luckily, you're only adding about an $11 million contract, so I kind of view the impact of every player from a contract value standpoint. I talk about this a lot. Like with Austin Reeves, he has a $12.8 million contract, so how much you really expecting him to do compared to a guy on a $50 million contract? You got to evaluate every player from a contract value standpoint. How much of the team's salary cap are they taking up? That's kind of like how much you should be expecting from them. If you get more than that, that's great. But you want that bare minimum of their contract value, and that's kind of what you have to evaluate them off of. So yeah, the injury risk is definitely a problem, but he doesn't have a huge contract, so I would be willing to trade for him yet, and I'd take that slight risk. And luckily, he hasn't ever had a torn ACL, torn Achilles, or anything. They've been minor reoccurring injuries for him, unfortunately. I know he's had a few foot injuries. I think he had either a back or shoulder injury last year. I can't remember quite which one, but yeah, that's about the only thing to worry about with him, in my opinion. You think D'Lo's defense would look a lot better if we had Wendell Carter alongside AD? Yeah, I agree. And I don't know, I think D'Lo's defense kind of got a bit too much blame last season. He definitely tried a lot harder, in my opinion, and he was not an outright liability. I mean, teams really didn't even target him that much from what I could tell. No, he's definitely not a great defender, and I think he would look better with, a better backline of defense behind him. I mean, how much better can you get than Anthony Davis already? But pairing Wendell Carter with him too would definitely be a good way to even give them more backline protection. And yeah, I think that would help a little bit. But even if you would keep D'Lo and Reeves, you couldn't have that be your starting backcourt with, if you'd be hoping to put Wendell Carter in your starting lineup anyway, you'd have AD and Carter for your 4 and 5, and then you got LeBron at the 3, and then who are you going to have defending wings? Do you want LeBron defending a wing player for 25, 30 minutes a game? And if you don't want him to, are you going to want D'Lo or Reeves to take on a good wing matchup for that entire time? I don't think you do. I definitely wouldn't, so that's kind of the problem with me there. Obviously, even if they would keep Rui and D'Lo, one of them would move to the bench, and it would more than likely be Rui in that scenario, but still, even adding Wendell Carter to their lineup to improve their backline defense, I think they'd still be too vulnerable at the point of attack and wing. So I think you kind of got to move D'Lo from both the financial standpoint and the defense standpoint too, because, I mean, yeah, you can move Reeves coming off the bench too, and then add in a Christie, or maybe they pick up a better perimeter defender or whoever it might be. But if you kind of want to keep Reeves in there, which I imagine they do in the way Redick has talked about him, I think they do. I wouldn't be entirely opposed to making him their 6th man. I don't think that's a bad idea. But, you know, it will kind of be awkward fit between moving either him or D'Lo, if they would keep D'Lo again, and then adding in Wendell Carter, and then who do they add in with them? And yeah, that's kind of the predicament I could see there. What else are we talking about? I'll try to get to all your questions. If you really want to grab my attention, you can do the super chat thing. Not trying to, pressure you or anything, but if you really want to grab my attention, that's the best way to do it. Vanderbilt should be healthy this year, yes. Yeah, from everything we know, he is healthy right now, training, doing workouts. I mean, theoretically, he could have played during their final playoff Game 5 game against Denver. He definitely wasn't fully healthy, but could he have played? Probably, but yeah, he'll be healthy heading into training camp. What got me thinking about streaming a bit? Been thinking about doing it for a while. I did it for the NBA draft, mainly for things like the NBA draft and free agency, which unfortunately I was gone for, but kind of bigger events, and I'll be doing it post-game after regular season games and then throughout the playoffs next year, so kind of get a feel for it now and then for that later on. But yeah, little update for you. Trade Wood and Cam Reddish. Yeah, I think if you're doing the salary dump route. Got a super chat from Arthur Johnson. Appreciate the 5, brother. I'm a faithful listener. What's the possibility we can bring Lonnie Walker back? You never got a fair chance under Ham. My thoughts on that. Yeah, Lonnie Walker is out there yet too. I think that's a good option. In fact, I nearly actually brought him up during, not my latest video, but one that was talking about Gary Trent Jr. as kind of a backup plan to him. If they would salary dump Cam Reddish or maybe include him in a trade for a Wendell Carter, let's say that, and they want to replace their backup shooting guard spot or add a little more kind of smaller guard or smaller wing, bigger guard depth, I think Lonnie Walker would be a good option for that. He shot really well from 3 again last season. Not a liability on defense, but not a great defender, but he'll fit with their team. He already proved it with LeBron and Anthony Davis. He is familiar with those two, played with Reeves again yet, played with D'Lo if they would keep him around, so definitely a little bit of continuity there. I don't mind that at all. I would prefer Gary Trent, given that he's more of a movement shooter, a little bit better of a catch and shoot guy compared to Lonnie, but no, I like Lonnie. I would not be opposed to that at all. Got another super chat from the notorious CRG. Appreciate the 5, brother. Mighty JSM. If Lakers know they have to clear roster spots if they want to make any moves, why had they not salary dumped Wood Reddish? They're taking the patient route. I don't know if they feel the urge to. I don't know if they've talked to Gary Trent. I mean, they don't have a far connection with Rich Paul being his agent. So, they're definitely in close connection. If I had to guess, Rich Paul probably gave them a hint that he's going to wait out the current free agent market just to see if any team that has their full mid-level exception left will offer it to him, and he can get that kind of money compared to taking a $5.2 million contract from the Lakers, because that would be more than double the amount. So if I had to guess, it would probably be waiting for a Gary Trent or waiting for the market in general. You never know if a guy might be waived. We kind of see it all the time, even later on in July or early August, a guy might get waived or even a buyout after a trade happens. So they want to maintain flexibility. They don't want to, dump anyone quite yet, even though I wouldn't be opposed to it, because then you could be able to offer a contract to a Gary Trent or whatever free agent it might be. But if I had to guess, that would be why they're waiting for the market to dictate itself, or for a trade to happen in that kind of, to move the NBA world a little bit too. And, when a big trade happens, there's a ton of domino effects. So there might be buyouts, there might be more movement after that. So all about flexibility and trying to predict the market. And, you can't really predict it, but that's kind of what they're trying to do there, if I had to guess. Should we get JaVale McGee instead of Wendell Carter Jr.? No, definitely not. I appreciate JaVale McGee for what he did back in 2020, but the guy is definitely washed up, unfortunately. I mean, if it would be end of the year kind of adding him to their team in April for end of the bench chemistry guy, then yeah, go ahead, bring back JaVale McGee, but not to fill an actual role on the team anymore, unfortunately. We need to trade a big and sign Tyus or Gary Trent. Yeah, I talked about that before. Oh, trade for a big. But yeah, I talked about that before. If they couldn't get Trent Jr. and they did salary dump a guy out their team, then I think Tyus Jones, or like how the notorious CRG brought up before, or Arthur Johnson, my bad, about Lonnie Walker. I think those would be two really good backup plans between Lonnie Walker and Tyus Jones if you can't get Gary Trent Jr. Yeah, go ahead. If you open up enough room to offer your taxpayer mid-level, those would be two really good options in my opinion. A lot of us have been listening to the channel. Couldn't... And I don't think I ever told anyone where I was from. I definitely did not say, if I can read that flag correctly, if that's the Philippines flag. Definitely not from the Philippines. I am from the US of A. Definitely. Oh, we got a little storm going on out there. But yeah, definitely have not revealed that. I am American. Just clear that up. Okay. Gabe and Cam in first round and second round for Wendell Carter. Yeah, you could go that route if you really wanted to. That'd be the more draft compensation route, how I showed before. I think you guys can see what I'm showing here. But yeah, you could go that route, but I think I'd rather go the D'Angelo Russell or Rui Hachimura route. That way you don't have to give up a first round draft pick, and then you won't be trading both D'Lo and Hachimura here, so you'll have more tradable contracts for at the trade deadline. And if you need to make another move at that point, especially a bigger move where then you would want to combine a Hachimura and a D'Lo with a Gabe Vincent, that way you have first round draft picks to pair with them. If you'd kind of want to add a borderline all-star to your team, you definitely need more than one unprotected first round draft pick to be able to do that. So that's why they're really being tight about their first round draft picks. And I don't think they'd want to trade one for a Wendell Carter Jr., who, again, I really like the fit of, but like we talked about before, there is that injury risk with him, having never played more than 62 games in 1 year. And you're taking a risk by pairing him with LeBron and Anthony Davis in that way. And then the same with the draft compensation route. You probably don't want to give up a first round draft pick for a guy that might miss, or even not even might, is probably a fairly good likelihood to miss about 20 games at the bare minimum. Really hope he doesn't, whether he's on their team, the Orlando Magic, or any team at all. I want everyone to be healthy, but history will tell you that he probably will get hurt for between 20 to 30 games. But Still young, only 25. You'd think he only just turned 25 back in April, too. You'd think he'd be able to get his health under control and have a fairly durable season here. I mean, he did play in like the COVID years with, the 72 game season back in 2021. So you can take that away from it too. He only missed 18 games that year, but still, he's missed about at least 18 to 30 games every year that he's played in the NBA so far. And yeah, you definitely got to take that into consideration when giving up a first round draft pick. All right, what else are we talking about? Oh, got another chat. The notorious CRG again. Appreciate the chat, brother. Is that Kid O'Neal from LSU going to be a lottery pick? He's dominant inside, but can't. I don't know. I think you're making a joke about Shaq. Yeah, he'd be a lottery pick in any day and age in the NBA. I thought you might have been talking about Sharif back in the day, but not back in the day when they picked him up on their summer league team. But yeah, that's kind of an argument people made about Zach Edey too, about dominant in the year 2024, but can't stretch the floor or maybe switch on defense too much. I talked about that too, and it definitely is a risk, but Zach Edey has never been on the level of a Shaq even in college. I mean, you can maybe compare them, but even Shaq back then looked a lot more dominant, and you could tell that he was a no-brainer option to go number 1 overall. But no, I like the joke there. I think Shaq would go top 3 in any era, and he'd make it work. Definitely thought I was Asian. Nope, not Asian. I have a mixed background, but Asian is not one of them. Rui and Cam and a second round pick for Bruce Brown. I don't think that would work. Again, we got to remember that the Lakers are a first apron team right now. They did avoid the second apron, but even with the first apron, you can no longer take back any money through a trade. So if we pull up that, I'll even shrink the screen here. I don't know if you guys can see the whole thing, but I think you mentioned Rui and Cam for Bruce Brown. And you can't make that work because the outgoing money is only 19.4 million and the incoming money is 23. So even at the trade machine, oh wow, we're really storming out there. Apologies if you guys can hear that, but yeah, you can't make that work because they're taking back $3.5 million in salary here, and they can't take back any. Not only because they're a first apron team, but because they're only about 50K away from the second apron too. But again, even first apron rules, you can no longer take back money through a trade. You can only send back more money through a trade. So it wouldn't work, unfortunately. If they would want to trade for a Bruce Brown, they would have to include not only a Rui Hachimura and Cam Reddish, but then they would have to throw in a Jalen Hood-Schifino with them as well to get over that $23 million mark. So that would work if you'd want to do that. That way they barely get over the hump, but then you're giving up 3 players for Bruce Brown, and then I imagine Toronto would maybe want draft picks here too. Maybe it wouldn't be a first round pick because you're giving up Jalen Hood-Schifino, who maybe they like, maybe they don't, even though Laker fans have already given up on him. Other teams probably view him with potential yet, as I do too. Maybe not as much as I did, but again, the point here, yeah, you have to take back money through, you cannot take back money through a trade. You can only send back more money through a trade if you're a first apron team like they are. Yep. Wendell Carter isn't big enough to mess with Jokic. The thing is, I think we got to get past the whole stopping Jokic or messing with Jokic thing. If Rudy Gobert and the huge front court of Minnesota can't limit him to under 30 points per game, no one in the league is going to. How Minnesota beat Denver was being able to limit their 3-point shots, their open 3-point shots, having good closeouts, being able to bother Jamal Murray. You win with versatile defense in the modern NBA. Yeah, you got to have good front court defense, be able to handle the posts. You don't want to give up 50 to a Nikola Jokic, but if you have a Wendell Carter Jr. who is definitely a good defender and you compare him at times with Anthony Davis, you're going to be just fine and there's nothing more you can do. So if you're getting beat down low with that front court, there's literally nothing more you could do. So I'd be completely fine if they can't stop Jokic with that front court.